This first one is really just graphing. On top of the graphing, you do need to know where it's located. I do want to point out, so don't forget that your first coordinate moves you left and right, and your second coordinate moves you up and down. Also, when you're labeling your quadrants, we start in the top right. So quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4, counterclockwise there. And you'll notice your instructions, as on your quiz, said or axis. All right, and so, for example, -4, 0, that's going to be left -4 and up none. That does not fall in a quadrant. The answer for that one would be x-axis. All right, so your answer could be 1, 2, 3, or 4, or it could be x-axis, y-axis, okay? And so when it says quadrant or axis, it means literally those are your options. So I think all of you can graph correctly. Sometimes some on your quiz messed up your quadrants. You may want to label your quadrants when you first get it and make a note of your axis. All right. The second page is really just labeling the points. So if you look at the very second page where you have the graphs, these are just labeling the points. So you're just going to tell me what the location of the point is. And that's just how far did you move left, how far did you move up. It should be X, Y for every one of those. We then moved to graphs. A couple things with your graphs. All right. When you draw a graph, you want to make sure that you have like an X and a Y axis. For these, you typically don't go into the 0, or past the 0 rather. You need to label those. So if it is your heart rate as you warm up, exercise, and cool down, this is time and this is your heart rate because it's happening over a period of time. These have to be labeled, right? I have to see a label so that I know which one you're talking about. And so you're going to draw then something to tell me, okay, as I warm up, my heart rate's probably going to go a little bit. When I exercise, it's probably going to shoot up. And then as I start cooling down, it's going to go back down, right? Not infinitely, but you know. And you're welcome to label it then. So you could say warm up if you want to, exercise, and then cool down. Like you're welcome to tell me what's going on in your graph. That part's not required. I will say it's recommended because if I don't understand why you did something, you know, if you did something strange, like in my brain where you did something like this, and you're like, oh, well, I'm warming up and then I'm cooling down and then I'm warming up, you know, exercising some more and cooling down. You need to tell me that because I won't know what you mean by this crazy graph here. Okay. So you may want to do these little labels so I know what you're thinking and why it represents that. Just like we did when it had A block, B block, what was happening with those. This just says state the domain and range. I literally just want you to give it to me in set form. So I would want you to say domain, right? And your domain is that your x's 3, 2, 1, and 0, but they need to be in numeric order and don't repeat them if they repeat, okay? So for this one, I would say 0, 1, 2, and 3 is my domain. And my range, well, that's just going to be my y values, -5, -4, -3, -2. And that is in numeric order. So you can write it just the way they gave it to you. So for domain and range, I'm literally just looking for two sets. A set of the x's and a set of the y's. Least to greatest without repeating. That's what I'm looking for. For this one, it wants you to write the relation as a set of ordered pairs. You have the x part of your ordered pair. You need the y. So in order to do this, you have to actually find the range first, okay? To find the range, you are going to plug all of these x's in. So this is where we did this little chart with our x's and our y's to solve for them. You don't necessarily have to do a chart. This just helps set it up so you can see what your pairs look like. And so if my x's are -1, 0, 1, and 2, my y's are going to be based on that. We're just going to plug those in. -3 plus 1. Then 0 plus 1. Then 3 plus 1. and then 6 plus 1. And so if they want the ordered pairs, which is what they're asking for, you're actually not done. This is not a set of ordered pairs. You have to continue and actually give me the ordered pairs. -1, -2, 0, 1, 1, 4, and 2, 7. This is what your answer should look like here for this one. Here we go is mapping diagram. So mapping diagram is where you're going to draw two, either rectangles or ovals, it doesn't matter. And you are going to label them, so make sure that whatever you draw, you're going to tell me what is the domain and what is the range. Again, you're going to list them in order least to greatest, and you are not going to repeat them. On your quiz, I don't know that I counted off for you repeating them for that first quiz. I will on the test. You cannot repeat them. If you repeat them, it's going to trick you into thinking you have a function because you'll just see one arrow. So you don't want to repeat. So for this one, you have domain of 2, 3, 4, and 5. And you have a range of 4, 5, 6, and 4. You'll notice that 4 is repeated there. So you are just going to write 4, 5, and 6 here. I'm not going to write the 4 twice. Okay? And then I'm going to draw the arrows. So 2 goes to 4. So I'm going to draw a 2 to a 4. 3 goes to 5. 4 goes to 6. And 5 goes to 4. And then it's asking, is this a function? Well, you only have to worry about the domain piece. Does every one of these only have one arrow coming off of it? Yes, it does. So yes, this is a function. All right. Yes, this is a function. Another way that we determined if something is a function is called the vertical line test. And so for the vertical line test, you should be able to draw a vertical line anywhere on the graph, and it will only cross it once. All right. So no matter where I draw it, it's only going to cross it one time. And you can see that no matter where I draw a vertical line, I'm only going to cross this graph one time. And so I would say, yes, this is a function. If I ask you to explain it, then you would say only crosses once. All right? So vertical line test is very simple. You're literally just telling me yes or no. All right. And if I have to ask you to explain it, the reason it's yes or no is whether or not it crosses one time or more than once. This one is actually saying this is a function, give me the range. Okay. So while we had to find it for the relation, it's not asking for ordered pairs. So all these instructions are doing is testing your knowledge of these terms. Okay. It's testing your knowledge of range. It's testing your knowledge of ordered pairs. Okay. It's testing your knowledge of function or not a function. And so while the process of doing it looks very similar, it's just asking it different ways so that you can distinguish between these instructions and these terms that we've learned. So for this one, you would do it exactly the same way. You'll notice your notation is different though. It has function notation. Okay, while the other one had a y, this one has function notation. And so for this one, it's just wanting you to plug these in. If I were to plug in a -4, what do I get? Well, 5 times -4 minus 8. If I were to plug in a -1, 5 times -1 minus 8. And so you'll do this for all 4 of these, and you will give the domain. So my domain here is going to be in least to greatest. If it repeats, don't repeat. Look at page 6. This is just, and you may not necessarily have it every single way on your test. On your test, you may have, give me the range, give me a set of ordered pairs, and graph it all in one question, okay? So it may ask for all 3 of these in one question versus multiple questions. But 26 and 27, it wants ordered pairs for this function. 28 and 29 wants you to graph those ordered pairs for this function, okay? So depending on what your instructions are asking for, you're going to plug it in, and then you're going to give the answer, whether it's range, ordered pairs, or graphing of those ordered pairs, all right? And then the last thing we did was we established what the rules were for these. It says make a table and then write a rule for each function. So for this table, we actually did an x and y this direction here. So we have x's and y's, and we are looking for relationships here between my x's, between my y's, between my x's and my y's. All right. And so you can see that these are going up by ones, right? These are going up by 5. So the first thing we're going to look at is 5 over 1. What happens when we multiply x by 5? Does that work? Well, 3 times 5 is 15, negative 15. Negative 2 times 5 is negative 10. It appears that just multiplying by that is working. It works for every single one of them. So the ratio that we got of y over x actually works. Multiplying by 5 works. So that is my answer. F of x equals 5x. And so you can see that that ratio works. If it did not, I would make a table of that ratio and I would see if I need to maybe add or subtract something to then make it work, okay? So start with that multiplication. If that doesn't work, write a row of those answers that they are and see if maybe you need to add or subtract something from that multiplication to make that work. If I were to do this, I would actually write this row out, negative 15. Oh, that's going to be negative 10. That's going to be negative 5. That's going to be 0. That's going to be 5. That's going to be 10. So for this one, I can see, okay, it's perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. But if I had something like this and maybe this row didn't look like that, maybe this row looked like negative 13, negative 8, negative 3, 2, 7, and 12. Okay? So let's say my row wasn't perfect and it was these compared here. Let me move this down. So when that happens, then you're going to compare what it was when I multiplied. So I'm going to rewrite these. So if I were to take this and say, okay, instead of that, it looks like this. Okay. So I can see my just multiplying by 5 is not working, right? So then I'm going to compare these two rows. Well, is there a comparison from 15 to 13, negative 13, from negative 10 to negative 8, from negative 5 to negative 3, 0 to 2, 5 to 7, 10 to 12. So I know that I've multiplied, so far what I've done is I've multiplied by 5, right? Now, what's the difference in these? Can I see a pattern here between this group? From negative 15 to negative 13, negative 10 to negative 8. What's the pattern there? They're all adding 2s. So then does this work? Yes. So what you want to do is you want to add a row of that multiplication, that ratio that you found, okay? And then you want to compare that row to what you're trying to get and look for a pattern of addition or subtraction, all right? And so you can see they're all adding 2s, and so this function is going to work. If I multiply by number by 5 and then add 2, I'm going to get my answer.